All right, so inside here, I can quickly go into the nav bar now, right? Or even if it's not the nav bar, I can basically do it here. So when you look, let's say this one, right? The picture, you can either click on the picture or the username, and then it should take you to the person's user profile, right? So let me do that on the username since that one looks more efficient. Or we can even do it on both of them, right? Both the picture and then the username. So what we can do is you can add a link tag. Okay, you can add a link tag. Okay, it has to come through. Okay, and then this link tag I'm going to cut, I'm going to paste here. All right, now with this link tag we want to make sure that we have one aim. We want to navigate to the user profile, right? But we want to be able to navigate to the user profile of that particular user on which we are clicking, right? So before we even set that up, I want us to come to this one, that is the home here. No, the app.js instead, JSX instead here. So here, over here, we can set up what this. We can set this up and then say what user name. Okay, so now that we've been able to set this up, I can go back here to the posts side here, and then I can say, okay, now I need you to go to a user profile, but not just any other user profile, but I need you to go to the user profile of a particular post, or the owner of that particular post, right? So if I say link to, then I give the link, right? So this slash, then I say profile. So I need you to go to profile, and then when you go to profile, I need you to go to the owner of that post's profile, right? So I'm going to say post dot what, then that's where we need to pass in the user name. Okay, so if we go back here and we set this up, okay, I don't know why link is acting like a, so I'll just put it on the username alone. Just put it on the username alone, and I think it should be okay. Yeah, sure. So now that link is here, if I click on it, we should be able to go to, okay, it says what, no routes match the location profile on undefined, right? Okay, so let us go back and say, so what do we have? We have what, user dot username, right? So let's use that instead, user dot username. I actually made a mistake. The post has a user ID, right? And then that user ID is what we used to pass here to get the user data, and then we set that to a user state. So we are going to instead use the user dot username rather, and not post dot username. Yes, so that was the mistake. Now I can go back. Let's go back really quickly. Let's go back. Hope the network works well. Alright, so it's here. As you can see, the post has reshuffled again. Alright, so I'm going to click on it, and then you see that that's taking us to the profile with the what, with the username over here. Right now, what we want to do is we want to start displaying information here. Right now, with what we have inside here, we want to be able to use the username that we have inside this to display the data here, right? But we do not have an endpoint that gives us the user information based off of the username, right? So we can create one for ourselves. But how are we going to create one? We can quickly go into the user service right here. Can go into the user service right now, and then we can, so I want to use one of these, right? So I want to say this one. So then I'll come down here and I'll say get user profile, right? Get user profile, then we are taking in what, the username, right? then we are taking in the username as well. Or let's not even pass in any parameters just yet. Let's not pass in parameters just yet, so we understand what is going on. So we are going to say that whenever we go into that page, right, we want to take the username, right? So we are going to say what? Look inside the user collection and find one. Okay, I need you to find one user that has a username of what you are going to pass to this username here, right? So if we say that we are getting the user information based off of this user and we are returning this, we just take this one and then take it here, paste it here, right? Now once we're able to paste this, I can say okay, since okay, I mean basically, yeah, that should be it, right? Now we can take this username and pass it through a query, right? So that we would, okay, let me do that really quick so that we don't get confused, right? So over here we can, instead of passing this, we can say this one is what, username being the parameter coming here. Let's quickly say what, dot username. So we can say what, query, right? Query, and then we are going to say query here as well. Okay, so I'll explain query in a second, then you'd understand how the query works as quick as possible. So now that we have get user profile here, I am basically going to go into the user.controller here, and then I'm going to copy this one. Okay, quickly going to copy this, paste this one, and I would say get user profile controller, and this is going to say what, I'm quickly going to say await get user profile controller, no, get user profile, and it should come from the service basically. Alright, now that we've been able to import it, we now passing what, request dot query, and then whenever we pass in the request dot query, it takes the username as the query, right? So now that we've been able to set that up inside the inside this one, which is the user controller, right? Now we are passing in the user info here based off of the username query. What do we do next? I'm going to go into the routes, the user route here, and then I'm going to copy this. So I'm going to say get user profile. Okay, get user profile. Okay, now this get user profile is going to say get user profile controller. Okay, then over here we say that we just leave it this way. Okay, we just leave it this way. Now that we've been able to leave it this way, right, we'll go into our profile in the front end. So where's the page? Profile here. We have the profile here in the front end. Now over here where we want to display the username here, we can now do another use effect, right? So where are we going to do this use effect from? Let me go to this one and then copy this use effect that we have here. Okay, quickly going to copy that use effect. Oh, I didn't copy it well. I'll copy this use effect, then I'll go to the profile page again here. I'll paste that use effect, then I want to clear this for the meantime. I'll set a dependency as username that we are getting from the params, right? So Okay, been able to set this up. Then we have this one, the function inside, that is going to be an asynchronous function performing an API call, right? So in order for us to be able to perform this API call efficiently, we need to do it inside our API file. So I'm quickly going to go inside this API file here. Okay, then I'm going to say what? So I'm going to say get user profile data. Okay, get user profile data. Then get user profile data is basically going to take in the username. Okay, it's basically going to take in the username. Okay, now that it has the username, we would change a few things. So for query, what you do is after this user route that you see inside this routes file here, if we go inside, you can see that we do not have anything that we are passing in here, right? So for that reason, going into the profile file here, okay, and going into our API file, which is this one, we would say question mark, then the query name, which is what? Username, is equal to, then we now pass in the username. Okay, so as long as this one is performing a username query and then we are getting that username, then with that information that we will get in return, we'll now display it on the page, right? So if I go to my profile, where's the profile? Okay, it's here. I go to the profile, then I'll say what? Get user profile info. Okay, then over here I'll say what? Get user profile data, user profile data. Okay, it's here, imported nicely. Then we'll pass in, okay, let's initialize this first. Then we need a username parameter that we are passing in, but we need to get this username from the parameters, right? We need to get the username from here. So how do we do that? We can quickly say const what? Username, and then we are going to get it from, I think, use params. Yes, we are going to get it from the use params here. Okay, now that we have this username, we can just pass it into this. So if we log this out, if we log this and say username, you should see that it should be the username that we have in the link, right? So if I come, you see Amma here. Okay, so that's awesome. It says use effect is not defined, so I'm going to go into the use effect here and import it, right? So I think use effect has been imported. Now we can move forward. Then we can create another use state and say user set user. Okay, and then we set that to what? A use state. Okay, set that to a use state of an empty object basically. Then we can set this user, I think when we go back to our user controller here, it says what? User info. Okay, so it's still the same thing basically. So inside here, it's res.data.user info basically. Then we can come here and set this username to be what? User dot what? Username. And then we can set this to the user bio, right? So we can say what? User dot bio. So if we go back into the project and let's refresh. Okay, we are getting the network errors one more time. We're going to refresh quickly. Hopefully we shouldn't get it. Okay, still the network errors. Let me save so that it starts again. Then I'll refresh. It should be here, Okay, we are getting the network errors. I'll refresh one more time, and then when it's back, I'll come back to the video. Alright, so the network finally worked for the profile to show. So as you can see, we have AMA, but there's no bio showing, and that is clearly because when you go through the database here, you can see that no one actually has a bio here on their profile, right? So for that, we can just for the meantime we can just go back here and then set this to be a text saying I am new here, or let me say I have no bio, so that we can identify it in the future and fix, right? Okay, now right, I think I have no bio looks weird. Let's just make it I am new here. Yeah, basically that should be okay, right? Let's go back. Okay, that should be cool. Alright, so we can see that we have the username showing here, and then the sample bio showing here as well. So the next move is to work on the user information here. Right, so but before we move on, I want to make sure that we do a change here. Now you see this place, we made the user.bio, but when we go to the user model to check, you can see that it's description instead, right? So we might want to change that. So I want to go back to where we were, which is the profile. Yeah, profile. Yeah, this is it, which is the profile, and then we change this to disk. Alright, so now that we set this up, what else are we going to change? We want to move on straight to the user information here. Okay, so in order for us to move on to the user information, you see here, right? You see here, we had a profile prop here, of which we passed to this section, right? But since we are trying to display the user information inside the right bar profile here, we want to pass in the user prop. Okay, so how are we going to do this? We are first of all going to clean this and then pass in user prop, right? And then we are going to pass in the user information that we are getting from that use state, right? Then we'll slide into this one real quick, then we'll change this also to user. Alright, now that we have this, we can basically come here. So over here that we have the user information here, we can say what user dot what, you can say user dot city, right? Then we can say user dot from, then we can say user dot relationship. Okay, and yeah, the rest we'll handle them later, right? So now that we've been able to set this up really quickly, right, when we go back here, you'd realize, okay, if we are having a few network problems. Okay, let me refresh this. It says profile is not defined. Okay, profile is not defined. So yeah, we forgot to come here and change this rather to user instead, right? Then we should be able to see it now. Let me refresh. Now as you can see, when we refresh it's back on, but you can see that we do not have anything being printed in a city from a relationship, right? So right now we are not trying to work on these ones at the for the meantime, but we can basically create a new profile or a new user and then set default properties for the user when it comes to the user information, and then we use that instead for these places, right? So what can we do? I'm quickly going to go to I'm quickly going to open VS Code, and I'll go to the user model. Go to the user model. Where is the user model? Basically, this is it. Then, what is the first one we want to work with? I'm quickly going to come into the disk part, and I'll say default. Okay, for the disk like this, we can choose to leave it and put in the normal one. But for this one, for the from, we can add a default string. Like so from Ghana. Okay, and I think we need a city. We also need a city part, the city field, right? So the city relationship. Okay, so I'll just duplicate this, then city, and then I would add what I would say Accra. Alright, then inside the relationship I can set a default relationship to, I can say 1, right? I can say 1. Okay, so now that I've been able to set this up, let us go into Postman and then sign up a new user. So I would say Henry, then I would say Henry at gmail.com. Then I would say Henry, right? Then I'll just create this user. Alright, so what we can do right now is I'm going to go into the bar here, and then I'm going to write Henry. I think it was a capital, right? So Henry. Alright, so as you can see, we have Henry here, and this is basically the user information that Henry has by default. But for the relationship part, we want to run a few conditions, right? Now, what are the conditions that we want to run? I want to go into the right bar here, and I want to go here. So I want to say that if the user.relationship is equal to 1, then I want to show single, right? But if it's equal to 2, the user dot relationship is equal to 2, I'd want to show married, right? But if it's none of these and it's 3, obviously, then I want to say maybe prefer not to say, or it's complicated. I think it's complicated is better, since that's what Facebook uses in general. You can set this to a capital I, so it's complicated. Then we can quickly set this okay, so what I'm going to do is there's a little bit of a mistake here. I'm just going to clean this part, and then that should be it. So when we go into here, you can see that single is what is written. Let me refresh, and then you can see that it is all here and set. Okay, so basically we are done for, we are not done just yet, sorry. We are going to have to apply the one for the profile picture too as well. So I'm going to go into the, I think for the profile picture it's going to be on the profile part here. So for the cover image, right, I can bring my double sticks here because we do not have a cover image just yet. Okay, it's not loaded yet, but we do not have a cover image just yet, right? So what we can do is you can take this user dot cover image that we do not have yet, right? Let's make sure that that's the right name that we give to it. I think, yeah, cover picture instead, right? So user dot cover picture, and then for this one that we do not have the user image yet, let's just do this one for this. Then I'll say what, let's check the actual spelling, which is profile picture, right? So I'm going to copy this one, come here, and then paste it here. Then I'm just quickly going to change this to the normal user icon that we used for the posts, right? So I can go into the posts here. I think we have the assets here, right? So I can basically copy this. I can copy. So what I did was Control C to copy it. Then let me close it. Then I'm going to come here and paste it in general. Yeah, so I've pasted it. Since, okay, let me check and make sure. Okay, it's still here. So why am I getting this error? Let's ignore it. Alright, now that we've been able to do that, we can now import it and say import no profile picture, profile pic from the assets, no profile pic from the assets. Okay, the assets, and then we say what, user dot png, then we make it what, we come here and we make it no profile pic. Okay, that is awesome, that is okay. Now that we've been able to set this up, we can go back and look at the project. It says what, okay, let's go back and correct it. Alright, now everything should be perfect, right? So Henry doesn't have any profile picture at the moment, so this is how it's going to show. If we go back into the home page here, okay, we can basically set it up so that when we click on this, we go to the home page. So let me come back and let me go to the nav bar. Where's the nav bar? Okay, there's the nav bar. Then over here I can say that let's link, right? We obviously have to import link. Alright, so it's here now. Then over here we can say that to, then give it the home page, right? So over here I just have to click on it. It takes me to the home page. I can click on Kofi. Alright, we are here. Okay, let's basically come to this side, click on Amma. Of course we have Amma's profile too here as well. We are left with one more thing to do. Now as you can see, the newsfeed here is still displaying the random things that we have here, but we want to make sure that whenever we enter someone else's profile, we are displaying only that person's information, right? Or only that person's posts, right? So in order for us to be able to do that, we are going to go back to VS Code, and then over here we're going to pass in a prop, say user posts, right? Now once we're able to pass in this prop, right, we want to go in here, then we want to pass in the same what prop, so we can say what user posts, right? Now that we have this user posts here, right, we want to say something. Now you see that we are passing the props in only the profile side, right? That's very important. So right after you pass the props, you want to go into this one, right, and then use the presence of this user posts prop to do your API calls separately, right? Now how are we going to do that? I'm going to say if user posts exists. Let me check my mic. Okay, it works. We are going to say if user posts exists, I need you to do something. But if the user posts prop doesn't exist, then I need you to do something else. So I want to await timeline post, right? But let's go into our API here. Now how do we get the post for the timeline, right? You say what? You take the user ID and then you pass it through the get timeline post here, and then that's how you're able to get the post for just one particular user ID, right? So how are we going to do that? So how we are going to do it is we are basically going to change how this one functions, right? So as you can see here, it takes in the user ID, but we are going to make this username, right? So username, and then this username we are going to get it from the params, right? That is the one inside the website address like we used for this one, right? So now that we've been able to know this, let us go into the backend and then set this up inside the services. So you see that inside the post.service, when you come to get timeline post here, it says what it looks through here and then gets what we are going to say find one, right? Find one. Then inside this one here, we're going to bring the curly braces in, and we're going to say username, and then this username we are going to get it from the params dot what username, right? The params dot username here. Alright, now that we've been able to set this up, username, then params dot username, right, we can now come here and set this one to as what. So for the user post here, we want to look inside this user post here and basically when we find this, right, when we're able to get this user, right, how we are going to be able to get these user posts is that we are going to say that this current user dot ID. Okay, so for this one we don't necessarily have to change or make any changes, so automatically it just works like that for us, right? Now that we've been able to work on that and we've been able to change it inside the API here, what we can do is we can basically call this function that we've created here and then passing the username inside the params, right? So how do we do that? Let's go to the newsfeed here. We can basically call username from params, so we can open the object and call username, and then we call it from what use params, then we close it, we initialize it basically. Then over here we can say await, but await get timeline posts, of which we are going to get that from, I think for get timeline posts we're going to get it from what, the API, yeah, right? Then inside we pass in the user name that is there, right? So over here I can basically log out the username to make sure that it is what we are expecting. And let's not forget that this one can be a dependency, right? That means whenever it changes, we can re-render this, right? So now that we have that, let's go back and make sure that this part is also the same thing as posts, right? So I want to go back here to the backend. Let's go back to the backend, and I think we'll go to the post controller instead. The post controller, and then for the timeline post, we want to make it the same posts. Okay, so here let's make it posts as well, just like how we have in the news feed. Where is it? Or just like how we have over here, right? Posts, and we set this also to posts so that we can immediately just start calling things, right? Let's change this to posts as well. Alright, so now that we've been able to set this up, let us go back, go to the newsfeed and check, make sure that everything is intact. Newsfeed. Okay. Alright, go to the browser, try one more time. Okay, so we are getting it. Okay, newsfeed, right? There seems to be a little error. Okay, I'm quickly going to go back to the home page, and I'll call Kofi. Kofi has more posts. It says what? It says, okay, I'm sure it's saying that the route has not been found. Okay, which is weird because we already set that up. Let's remove, or we can, let me add this question mark so it checks whether the data is available before accessing the posts. Okay, that didn't work. Let us take out the question mark and then remove this. So that it renders once. Okay, let's see, it still says that response doesn't exist. Okay, I know why. We forgot to change in here the routes. We forgot to change inside the routes that we are now using username, right? So if I go into the post.routes, you can see that we didn't set it up for username, right? So username, right, then now it should work just fine. Little mistakes that we make. It's taking a little longer than usual. Okay, so as you can see, this is only Kofi's posts that is showing up successfully. Okay, this is awesome. Alright, now that we've been able to implement this, in the next video we would be working on some more important things such as login and register, authentication in general. So I bet you don't want to miss out how we're going to implement it in a very interesting way. Hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Bye.